Not one, but two major polls dropped moments after President Trump's historic speech last night. And let me just tell you this, it demoralizes the Democrats because their response was not well received and the American people have spoken. Now, before I show you the congressman who got kicked out, let's take a look at these polls.
To the results, what was your reaction to Trump's speech? 44% of speech watchers in our instant poll tonight say they had a very positive reaction to Trump's speech. 25% somewhat positive, 31% negative.
And then you had this poll from CBS News, 76 approve, 23% disapprove. I mean, this is an overwhelming rejection to the Democratic Party and their response to what President Trump had to say. It's just another embarrassment for them. And CNN also had a focus group where they asked someone what they felt about Trump's speech, especially on the economy.
How did you feel about his message regarding the economy?
I thought it was very positive. I think what's happening now, we used to be a country that would just let everything happen. Okay, we'll do this. You know, you guys, Panama can have this. You know, I think now we're taking back things that should have never been given away. So I think doing those tariffs and everything, I think it's well overdone. I mean, it should have been done a long time ago.
What's fascinating, every time CNN does these focus groups, it never ends well for them because you're talking to real people and they absolutely relate to President Trump. Even the ones who don't like him, they resonate with his message. Here's another example of them seeing through to the truth, which is egg prices are not President Trump's fault. It's actually Joe Biden's fault.
I don't know much about it. I mean, I don't really have enough.
They killed 100 million chickens in 2024.
That was part of the response to avian flu.
But exactly, but that also is a reason why the prices went up. Right. You know, it's not that Trump did anything about that. And I mean, it was the bird flu. They had to call the chickens. Right. That's why the prices raised up. It wasn't Trump's fault. It wasn't because Biden had some crazy policy against, eggs and chickens. So,
I appreciate all of your perspectives. We're going to have to put a pin on that.
Well, I guess it got so bad for them, they had to cut it short there. But listen, I just want to tell you this really quick. Democrats are going to make the mistake, including the left-wing media, into overanalyzing everything that President Trump said instead of recognizing how Americans feel about what he said. Does that make sense? So President Trump did a great job of highlighting the emotional issues that Americans can relate to. Democrats will be spending their time talking about things that Americans won't be able to relate to. Now, one thing Americans will not relate to is what Congressman Al Green did when he tried to interrupt the president and ended up getting kicked out.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session. Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Now, there are two things that I found to be funny about all this. Number one, his name is Al Green out of Texas. I guess Texas now has two Democrats who are clearly unhinged. And secondly, I don't believe the Democrats are actually prepared tonight because Trump definitely made a great speech, as you guys watched live if you were with us. And they just seem unprepared. They refused to clap. And this was the start of that downfall for them. I guess he thought over-talking the president was a great strategy, but he learned quickly. Now, they did catch him outside, and here's what he had to say.
Do you have no mandate? Is that what you said? Well, look, I'm willing to suffer whatever punishment is available to me. I didn't say to anyone, don't punish me. I've said I'll accept the punishment, but it's worth it to let people know that there are some of us who are going to stand up against this president's desire to cut Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security.
So were you saying you have no mandate? Is that what you told him?
That's what he has no mandate to cut Medicaid. None.
Is the only punishment that you were kicked out, sir? Is there something?
I don't know. Whatever the punishment is, I'm not fighting the punishment. This is about the people who are being punished by virtue of losing their health care. This is the richest country in the world, and we have people who don't have good health care. We've got to do better. And now we're about to cut Medicaid, which is for poor people. Health care has become wealth care for many people, and we can't afford to let that happen.
Is that the only thing that you're protesting?
No, I have other things I'm protesting. And I'm also working on my articles of impeachment. This president is unfit. He should not hold the office. 34 felony convictions, 2 times impeached.
Sir, tell me one more time what you were shouting in the chamber.
That he has no mandate to cut Medicaid.
That's what you were saying over and
Yes.
over. Thank you, sir.
Yes. No mandate. Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
It didn't sound like an emergency to me for him to interrupt the president like that. That's number one. Number two, where's the articles of impeachment? You've been working on them for quite some time. So I find that to be interesting. And number three, don't you think you should probably be spending your time trying to pass pieces of legislation, maybe something that you believe will protect Medicaid from being cut, since that's what you believe in? And that's why you can't believe anything that they say, because it's a joke. Once you start doing the math and you start doing the research, you find this is just a dog and pony show for the Democrats. Now, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he had a response to that outburst and what he may plan to do about it.
Somebody like Al Green, when he pulls off a stunt like that?
Well, we escorted him off the floor. He couldn't behave himself. It's quite shameful. It brought shame on, I'm sure his constituents are not proud of that tonight. But I suspect that there'll be a censure resolution brought on the floor to discipline him. We have to do that inside the House. We have to maintain decorum. Yeah.
Now, before we get to what the Democrats had to say in response to this speech, which there's plenty, I just first want to address what the media is saying and what happened with the Congressman Al Green, who embarrassed himself there when he interrupted President Trump's speech. Now, this is ground news. You guys can look this up for yourself by going over to ground.news/Devori. Again, I love these guys. We use this to produce our show. Why is that? Because this tool right here is going to show you what both sides of the political spectrum is saying. Now, this pulls in all of the articles, and if we look on the left here, what are they saying? Here's one from USA Today. Democrats protest Trump's address with signs. This is not normal. Save Medicaid. So they're not even going to bring up what Al Green did. Okay, got it. And here's another one. Shameful. Democrats walk out of Trump's address to Congress with profane posts. So they're celebrating the fact that he's doing this. That's what I'm getting from the media that leans left. And then if you compare that to what they're saying on the right, Al Green removed from House chamber after protesting Trump's address. That makes sense. Dems interrupt Trump and are drowned out by USA chants. That's from Fox News. One more. Speaker Johnson instructs Congressman Al Green to be removed from Congress after interrupting Trump repeatedly. And that's my point to showing you guys this tool, because it shows you what both sides are saying. And let's not forget, there's times when there are stories that they refuse to report on, like what happened earlier today when Stephen A. Smith gave The View a reality check. The right are the only people talking about it. The Democrats don't want to talk about it. The left-wing media won't talk about it. Why? Because they don't like the truth.
And this is why I love Ground News, and you will too. So subscribe through my link at ground.news/Devori, or download the mobile app and use offer code Devori for 40% off the Vantage plan, which will give you unlimited access to everything that we just covered in this video.
Now, here is the Democratic response, which is what I want to get to in this video. I'm just going to show you. I don't think she got the memo here. Okay, because what she's going to do is spew the same old talking points.
President Trump loves to say peace through strength. That's actually a line he stole from Ronald Reagan. But let me tell you, after the spectacle that just took place in the Oval Office last week, Reagan must be rolling in his grave. We all want an end to the war in Ukraine, but Reagan understood that true strength required America to combine our military and economic might with moral clarity. And that scene in the Oval Office wasn't just a bad episode of reality TV. It summed up Trump's whole approach to the world. He believes in cozying up to dictators like Vladimir Putin and kicking our friends like the Canadians in the teeth. He sees American leadership as merely a series of real estate transactions. As a Cold War kid, I'm thankful it was Reagan and not Trump in office in the 1980s. Trump would have lost us the Cold War.
I told you she was going to speed the same old talking points because the bottom line is this. They hate Trump so much, they're focused on President Trump so much that they couldn't even stand and clap for a 13-year-old kid who survived cancer. Make that make sense.
While we're on the subject of Elon Musk, is there anyone in America who is comfortable with him and his gang of 20-year-olds using their own computer servers to poke through your tax returns, your health information, and your bank accounts? No oversight, no protections against cyber attack, no guardrails on what they do with your private data. We need a more efficient government. You want to cut waste? I'll help you do it. But change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe. The mindless firing of people who work to protect our nuclear weapons, keep our planes from crashing, and conduct the research that finds the cure for cancer, only to rehire them 2 days later? No CEO in America could do that without being summarily fired.
The same could be said about her and her colleagues who failed to do anything about the deficit, who failed to do anything about the border, who failed the 13 service members who lost their lives, and failed the people in Israel and in Ukraine. So as far as I'm concerned, that's not going to work, okay? And trying to scare people by saying Elon Musk is having access to your personal data, lady, we have debunked that so many times, okay? If you're a federal employee who works in these agencies, you have access to people's personal data. My question is, what solution do you have to protect American citizens from other corporations from stealing our personal data? Oh, yeah, that's right. You guys don't have an answer for that. Now, here's what Scott Jennings had to say about her response.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure she's a very nice person. None of this will be remembered because this was a horrific night for the opposition party, regardless of how well she just spoke. It started out with Al Green getting thrown off the House floor because he couldn't keep his emotions under control. Then they had the ridiculous paddles, which now social media is roasting.
That you said false on one side and
ridiculous.
Elon on
and
the
then
other.
finally, and maybe most terribly, the Democrats who couldn't find it in their heart to stand for objectively good things, including the 95-year-old mother of Mark Fogel and Mark, who got rescued from a Russian prison, and they couldn't even stand up for that. I thought Democrats came into this speech lost and defeated by Donald Trump, and today it looks to me like they're even more lost and even more defeated than when this speech started.
Well, there's no question that they are defeated, demoralized. I told you guys earlier in the video, they're all over the place. They don't know what to put their focus on. You got some people that were there, some people that were not. You got some people interrupting the president. And it's not just them. It's the media too. MSDNC, they're losing it. Let's listen to what Rachel Maddow had to say.
For the record, and this is disgusting, the president made a spectacle out of praising a young man who thus far survived pediatric cancer, as if the president had something to do with that. This was in the midst of him praising Doge. The Doge cuts, among other things, have cut off funding for ongoing research into pediatric cancer.
Yeah, so she clearly didn't hear the speech. Again, they have to disagree because they have to disagree because they literally hate him. That's a perfect example of it. And this is what's controlling the Democratic Party. People like her speaks for the Democratic Party. I'm not complaining. I mean, if they were smart, they shouldn't let her do that. But I guess we don't really expect anything less from her. Now, her counterpart, she also had this to say.
But I think this was a lesson in finding one thing that you let yourself feel. And I let myself feel joy about DJ. And I hope he's alive for another, 95 years, right? And I hope he lives and the life he wants to live. He wants to be a cop. He knows what he wants to do. And maybe when you have childhood cancer, that crystallizes for you. And I hope he has a long life as a law enforcement officer. But I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide. And I hope he isn't one who has to testify against the people who carried out acts of seditious conspiracy and then live to see Donald Trump pardon those people.
She sounded good there, right? For 80% of it. And then that last 20%, she went to a dark place. She didn't have to say that. And I don't really believe she believes that. But again, they have to speak this way. And I just don't think they know any other way than to do what they've been doing. It's their way of life. It's their livelihood. Their whole network is based on hating President Trump. Now, let me show you a clip. This is David Axelrod on CNN. He's trying to spin this idea that President Trump is focusing on the wrong social issues. Okay. All right, Democrats, you guys know about social issues, right? Well, Scott Jennings sets them straight.
You know, you can't spend some of these social issues at the supermarket. You can't spend them at the gas station. You can't pay your mortgage with them or your rent. And at some point, you got to stop blaming Joe Biden, and you're going to be accountable. And you know, he must have met Biden a dozen times in the speech.
I mean, the X. I love you. You guys were blaming George W. Bush in year 8 of the Obama presidency.
No, but you know something, Scott? We learned something from that. We learned something from that.
He's been in office for 40-something days. I am hearing a lot of cope. These social issues, you know why he talks about them? Because they work. They're like 80-20 issues, and he's on the right side of them, and Democrats are on the wrong side of them. It worked in the campaign, and nobody... Oh, he's not talking about the right things. It worked in the inaugural. It's working in the executive orders. It's why he put it in the speech tonight. And on immigration, you're exactly right. It's his number one achievement so far. The border's effectively closed. The line of the night was they kept saying we need new legislation to secure the border, but it turns out all we really needed was a new president. Without question, in my mind, top scoring line.
I think that was one of his best lines because it proved that Congress still has a lot of work to do. And the president doesn't need to wait on Congress to take action, even though Biden tried to use that excuse. Didn't work because one of the best accomplishments so far from the president is what he has accomplished on the border. And it's unfortunate Democrats can't even recognize that. Now, here's the Treasury Secretary and how he summed up what happened to the Democrats tonight.
He's on a roll, and that speech tonight was incredible. And you know, I think that
I've known him 30 years. I think it's the best speech he ever gave.
I think it was fantastic. And the Democrats are flailing because you can't just be the resistance. You got to be for something. And they haven't coalesced. They have no idea what they're for. They're just against Donald Trump. And he continues winning, and they're just off balance. And you know, he's in there every day for the American people.
Yep, that's a good way to describe it. So leads me to the question of this video. What did you think about President Trump's speech? Did you join us live? Put that in the comment section below. And also, if you want to, share your message to the Democratic Party as a response to what they did during that speech. Now, right before President Trump's speech, Zelenskyy made news. He is now bending the knee to President Trump. He's willing to sign an agreement. The president did bring that up in his speech, stating that he's grateful that Ukraine is ready for peace. Now, if you missed out on the details and the meltdown from Justin Trudeau, because he's now declaring a trade war with Trump, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.